Khaenri'ah. I haven't heard those words in over 500 years.
You're not 500 years old.
Shut up! You're ruining my intro. Yes, Khaenri'ah, an ancient civilization with unbelievable technology.
You're not 500 years old.
Shut up! Go attend a funeral or whatever it is you do.
That's not what I do.
Was an ancient civilization, underground even, but it all came to an end on that fateful day 500
Yeah, screw
years
this. I'm
ago.
going to the library.
Yahoo!
Khaenri'ah is mentioned in almost all of my lore videos. Its destruction is without a doubt the most significant event to Genshin Impact's lore, and one of the most vital parts of the game's overarching story. But what is Khaenri'ah, and why is it so significant? And what does that mean for us today? Let's start at the beginning, literally. Khaenri'ah is the first area the traveler wakes up in. At this point, it's already in shambles and destroyed. This destruction of Khaenri'ah is dubbed the Cataclysm in-game. You can see glimpses of it while the travelers fight with the unknown god. More on that subject later, but what was Khaenri'ah before this and what led to its destruction? The nation was entirely underground, not a part of Teyvat, and described as away from the purview of the gods. This last bit is likely due to the fact Khaenri'ah is quite literally visually away from Celestia, where the gods can see all of Teyvat. Being underground, they did not have access to things upon the surface like most plants and basic necessities of life, really, and they didn't worship any Archon either, so there was no assistance from Celestia to aid Khaenri'ah in this aspect. Instead, they were ruled by humans, with a government named the Eclipse Dynasty. If you didn't know, all the nations of Teyvat right now are under the rule of an Archon, or at least worship one. I say that because Venti doesn't quite rule Mondstadt so much as Baal does with Inazuma, so being underground and having no help from the gods, Khaenri'ah utilized the art of Khaenri'ah, which was an advanced type of alchemy that is described as literally being capable of creating life itself. I'll be making a video on this subject in the future, but for now what's important to know is that Khaenri'ah was responsible for making Khaenri'ah extremely advanced despite having very little access to the basic needs on the surface. They were able to create everything they needed, and even the automatons that still function today and can be seen all over Teyvat. However, not all that glitters is gold. You'll get that joke in a minute, don't worry. Khaenri'ah being extremely advanced ended up leading to the downfall of Khaenri'ah. One alchemist named Gold, see I told you, ended up creating life, what is described as dark monsters. More on this later. Oddly enough though, Mondstadt's very own Knights of Favonius actually sent soldiers to Khaenri'ah to fight these monsters. This is strange because it implies that these monsters must have been leaking out of Khaenri'ah's general area and into the rest of Teyvat because, let's not forget, Khaenri'ah was said to not exist on Teyvat. Now, that might just be a play on words because it is under Teyvat. We don't exactly know where in space Khaenri'ah existed. However, this proves that there is a way to travel to Khaenri'ah, one that was clearly no secret because the Mondstadt Knights were able to utilize this route. This fact will be important and come up later. That being said, however, it led to no avail, and eventually Celestia caught wind of the fact that Khaenri'ah was playing God and sent the Archons to destroy Khaenri'ah. Now, very quickly before we move on, there is a theory that I want to bring up that Gold is still alive and is leading the Abyss Order. We learned that the mortals of Khaenri'ah were turned into monsters of the Abyss at the end of We Will Be Reunited. There's some speculation that the fact is Khaenri'ah is responsible for this, and I don't exactly think it's a far stretch of the mind. That being said, however, I will be saving this discussion for my video on Khaenri'ah, so if you're interested, make sure you keep an eye out for that video in the future. Now I want to talk about the unknown god that you see in the beginning of the game. She talks about the irrigation of mankind and dubs herself the retainer of heavenly principles, so we can kind of speculate that this unknown god could be a being that exists in or out of Celestia, and is potentially responsible for the destruction of Khaenri'ah, in that she is the one who issued for the destruction by the Archons. Now, before your head explodes, let me explain. My main evidence is because in this instance, the Khaenri'ahs would be the quote-unquote arrogant mortals that she is referring to, and the principles that she is retaining is that of the gods ruling the mortals, and the mortals not becoming more powerful than the gods, which is ultimately what led to the destruction of Khaenri'ah, both because 1, they're playing God basically by creating life, and 2, their power is becoming so severe that Celestia can no longer turn a blind eye. And you might be asking, what exactly are the travelers doing here then in this instance? For the sake of time on this video, I will not be discussing my theories on this specific subject, but if you're interested on my thoughts, I recommend you join the Discord where you can communicate with me directly about lore in this subject. So after Celestia destroys Khaenri'ah, it is not confirmed, but highly hinted towards and alluded to, that the site of the destruction is now where the Abyss is located. And this is almost proven if you watch my video on Leylines and Dawnsleif, due to the fact that Dawnsleif was a royal guard for an Arminsel tree in Khaenri'ah, and the original Arminsel tree now being in the Abyss. So I won't go over that too much, but if you're interested and curious about this theory, I highly recommend you to watch my video both on Leylines and on Dawnsleif, as his involvement with Leylines can be a little difficult to understand if you don't know how they work. Another good piece of evidence that proves the destruction of Khaenri'ah is now where the Abyss is located is the fact that we learn at the end of We Will Be Reunited that the humans of Khaenri'ah were transformed into the monsters of the Abyss. So it would make sense then that Khaenri'ah itself was transformed into the Abyss after the fight with the Archons. Of course, the Abyss is underground, Khaenri'ah is underground. The humans of Khaenri'ah were transformed into the monsters of the Abyss, and we have this whole connection with Dawnsleif and the Leylines, where he is a royal guard for an Arminsel tree in Khaenri'ah, and the original Arminsel tree now being in the Abyss. So the parallels are extremely prevalent. But this brings us back to the fact that the Knights of Favonius traveled to Khaenri'ah to fight the monsters that Gold created. This is significant because if Khaenri'ah is now where the Abyss is, there could still be a route to travel to the Abyss somewhat close to Mondstadt. Just thought I'd point that out. That could be something that could be important in the future story. Now with all this information, you may be thinking something. Celestia destroyed Khaenri'ah for what exactly? Being too advanced, governing themselves, creating life? The more you learn about Genshin's lore, you start to see the idea that Celestia is probably not as pearly white as you may have initially imagined. The idea that Celestia is likely to be evil and the Fatui and the Abyss are actually being the good guys is an idea that I will likely cover in another video. So that is my explanation of Khaenri'ah. I hope you liked the video, and if you feel like I missed something important, please leave a comment and let me know. If you want to add anything to the discussion, I highly recommend everyone to check out the Discord, link in the description, where you can discuss Genshin lore with me directly. You can make suggestions on topics you would like for me to cover in the future, and really anything else. I have actually made videos simply due to suggestions that I've received on my Discord. But as always, I will see you guys in the next video, and thank you for watching.